How old were you when you started to compose your own music, Andrew?
Well, I'd say around 13, but I was in a musical school when I was around 9.
Okay.
Because my parents saw some talent in me, some potential in music, and I went to a musical school when I was around 9. And then when I was around 13, I was already creating my own melodies. But the problem for me was, where those melodies are gonna go. Is it gonna be rock music, pop, hip hop? And at that moment, we had a very famous radio station in my country, in Moldova, and they were playing a lot of Armin, ATB, Tiesto, like their old songs, and I fell in love with that music. So I decided that my melodies should go in electronic music, so that's when I started to create electronic music.
Were you always kind of aiming towards working in this medium? Did you ever consider going into classical piano or R&B, anything like that?
Well, I started as a classical trained musician, so basically in the musical school we were learning all this classical stuff. I mean, my first tracks were a combination of electronic music and classical music.
Okay.
So I was creating all those classical melodies and putting up like a beat on top of it. So that's pretty much what trance is, combining like beautiful classical melodies with electronic elements. And I was never like really comfortable on playing the instrument live in front of the people, even though I did that a lot when I was in a musical school, because we did at the end of each year we did like a mini concert for parents and everyone, but I was never really comfortable. So I wanted really to be behind the scene in a way, like to create my music and just like maybe play it as a DJ is something different, but then playing live, I don't know, it just wasn't really comfortable with that.
Okay. What would you say is your most influential live concert experience?
That would be probably when I saw Above and Beyond coming for the first time in my country. It was the best show for me as a person in the crowd. So, I mean, I've seen many amazing shows as a DJ that I performed, but as a person that got to experience a show from that perspective, from the crowd, it was the first time Above and Beyond came to Moldova.
Were you an attendee at any versions of the State of Trance shows prior to becoming involved with them as a musician? Were you an attendee at any State of Trance shows prior to becoming a participant in them?
Well, I was the part of the radio show for a pretty long time before playing one.
Okay.
So Armin was playing my tracks. I had so many Tune of the Weeks, future favorites in a State of Trance radio show, and at some point it came naturally that Armin asked me to come to one of his shows. It was a State of Trance 600, episode number 600.
Okay.
It was in Beirut. That was the first one I played, and it was just crazy for me. I think it was the first like big show that I played for like 10,000-15,000 people. Before that, I did like maybe 3,000-4,000 people. So it was like a big jump for me. And they've got all this media, it's broadcasting live audio and video. So my career like went up so fast after that show.
I think it's cool that you focus on creating your own original material and not so much on just doing mixes and interpretations of other people's music.
Yeah.
That's obviously something you're going to continue with, because I know you're going to play a new single tonight as well, right?
Yeah, I'm going to play maybe even more than one single tonight, because I'm working on my album, and it's always great to test stuff and see how people are going to react on them, and then I can go back to the studio and tweak it, like make it short or change something that I didn't like. So yeah, I'm going to definitely play some new stuff tonight.
How much time per day, if you can give me an average, do you spend creating music?
Around 8 hours for sure.
Yeah.
But I find myself constantly thinking about my music and ideas, so I would say like 24 hours. because even though I'm not in the studio, I'm having lunch or breakfast, I'm still thinking like, okay, I should do that. I'm planning kind of my studio time. So it's my whole life in a way, but like in the studio around 8 hours spending there.
Aside from Armin, who would you cite as some of your favorite musicians?
I have so many favorite musicians in terms of like music in general. That would be Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
He's one of my all-time favorite musicians. That's basically where I got so much inspiration. I love the music he's creating. He's basically doing soundtracks for the music, for the movies.
Yeah.
And for me, that's modern day classical music. So like other people from electronic music, that would be definitely guys like Dash Berlin, Above and Beyond, Garrett Emery.
Okay.
Get a lot of influence from them.
Have you scored anything yourself?
Well, I did kind of for a very like low budget Indian movie.
Okay.
So I was asked to do a soundtrack, and it was a cool experience for me, and I did it, and I see myself as soundtrack producer in the future, so I said, yeah, I should try it, and maybe in the future I'll do more maybe for Hollywood movies.
Do you find it easier to create your own music, or do you find it easier to remix other people's music?
It's you can't put it that way. It's easy or hard. Either it comes or not.
Yeah.
So it's just like it comes completely unexpected. It can be in the middle of the night, and if it comes, you should go straight away to the studio or record that idea or do something. If you don't, you just lose it. But then if you're pushing yourself, like, okay, I want to go now in the studio to create something, it never works like that.
Yeah.
So it's right moment, right time, and yeah, it just has to come.
This genre of music has changed so much over the past 20 years. Do you have an opinion on where you think it's going to go over the next decade or two?
Well, we can see so many like individual genres, like trance, house, classical music, rock, pop, whatever. They kind of came individually, and now they're all going together. They're like mixing up, and you can see all the genres, like anything mixing up with anything. Yeah. So like trance music with rock, with pop, with classic music, with hip hop, with everything. So probably in the future there's gonna be like one universal genre. There's no gonna be boundaries anymore that this is like this type of music or this is just, there's just gonna be music, and that's what I like. I love music, and I think there should be no boundaries. There should be like just music in general, and people should not really care about genres.
You mentioned earlier that if you come up and you're inspired with an idea, you should get it down as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Is there an example that you have of something that you've written where you were inspired and you were scrambling to put it down?
To be honest, my biggest hits were written in the shortest time possible. Like Dark Warrior, I wrote it in one day because I was just inspired. It was a perfect time. It was just that moment where I got inspired, so I went straight to the studio and I wrote it. And it is one of my biggest tracks so far. Also like One in a Million, another track, also did it in like 2-3 days. So if you're trying to push it too hard, you don't like it, change it too much, then at some point you get bored of it and you just don't like it anymore. So the best tracks just come fast.
Okay. How much attrition do you have on stuff that you create where you're like, it's not working, I'm just going to file it? And do you ever go back to that stuff and make it better?
Sometimes, I finished a couple of tracks like that. Like I left them, then maybe a year or two later, I opened again the project and I said, oh, this sounds actually pretty good. So I did some changes and I finished that track. But you have to leave it for a very long time, because you spend so much with that music in the studio, like days and days, and you're trying and it doesn't work, and then it's just stuck in your head. And even if you're trying to change it in a way, at that time, it doesn't really work because you're always going back to the same thing. So you have to leave it for like, I don't know, months, a year, 2 years, then come back, then you're completely fresh and you can like go and change all the things.
Cool. What do you have to say to people who don't believe that this genre of music is a viable means of creating music? What's your opinion on people that feel that way?
Well, I mean, I don't really understand people that like divide genres. For me, music is a general thing, and obviously trance music is huge, house music is big, and there's people that combining these things. Well, for me, I like to be kind of in the middle. I like to get the emotions and all those feelings from the trance music and get the energy and the drive from other genres and put all these things together and maybe create something new. That's how music evolves for me. And people should understand that music will always evolve into something new.
They say that most people will love the music that they listen to from the age of 19 to 25 for the rest of their life. So with that said, what are you listening to right now? Because that's probably what you're going to be listening to when you're 50.
Well, I didn't really change my taste. I mean, I went through all types of music. My first cassette tape I bought was Linkin Park. When I was around 13, 14. I went through all types of rock music like Nightwish, Rammstein. I went through hip hop like 50 Cent and like all that stuff. And I don't know. And at the same time, I was still listening to electronic music. So I left behind all two genres, and the strongest one for me was electronic music. So at this moment, I'm still listening to electronic music. But for me, always one of the best music was classic music. So I'm still listening to classical music.
And one last one for you. What are some of your favorite remixes by your peers in this genre? What turns
by
you
other
on?
people or by me?
By other people, yeah.
That's a pretty tough question. I mean, I'm a big fan of Armin, and he did so many great remixes. Specifically, I don't think there's one favorite remix because there's just like a lot of them. So I can't really name you exactly. Then the other people will be disappointed.
I hear that. Fair enough, man. That was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.